All right. Hi, Mary. Thank you so much for
Hi.
joining me here today on Vonvo.com to discuss the revolution inside of Syria. Today is March 10th, 2013. Um, Hi, Joanne. How are you?
Fine, thank you, Max.
Good. You can join in
Just
with
got
us
back from my
also.
Mother's
I
Day
can't
lunch.
hear. Okay. Happy Mum's
Can't hear
Day.
you, Mary. Thank you, Mary.
I just.
So, ladies, we're
Just had a,
we're here to discuss the revolution in Syria. Just to go over the two quick ground rules, as usual. We don't want there to be any personal attacks. Are you guys fine? With
Yes.
keeping to those ground rules.
definitely.
All right. And right now the conversation is being recorded. So please, understand that right now after it's done the discussion, I'll be uploading this video to YouTube. Is that okay with both of you?
Fine.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So, just for everyone who's watching and who watches this video a little later on, Mary, would you mind just giving a quick background of yourself, and then Joanne, you can do the same, and just state why you're so passionate about this topic.
Okay. My name is Mary Rizzo, and I live in Italy. Have been an activist for many human rights causes for a really long time, most particularly for that of Palestine, and the Syrian situation is, as far as I'm concerned, a continuation of all that I have done in my life up to this point. So that's why I'm passionate about it.
Great.
Mine's more or less the same. Been an activist for quite a few years. Started with the Iraqi refugee situation, which, they had, a lot of us ended up in Syria and were well looked after there. And then it went to the Arab Spring, and obviously Iran too. And I'm still involved with the Iranian situation, which is getting more horrible every day. So we don't hear anything in the press. But the Syrian thing, I think this is the worst infringement of human rights and everything else that I've ever seen. I've never seen such brutality in any other conflict in all my life, and I'm 75. So I'm just passionate about this. I want to help the Syrian people where I can and how I can.
Okay, great.
And alerting the world and trying to get them to listen and do something. It's hard work.
Right, of course. So, the topic that, and Joanne, you didn't know, but the topic that we wanted to discuss, was this idea behind anti-imperialism, and the position of such an individual inside of Syria, would take with everything that's going on over there. So, Mary, would you mind just giving us a sense of what that is all about, and why it is such a a heavy subject regarding this topic?
Sure, of course. It isn't so much the anti-imperialists inside of Syria, though, because what we have outside of Syria is, as Joan has said, trying to get people to be interested either in something that they didn't know about, or I'm getting a horrible return. I'm sorry.
Oh, really? Okay, it might be on my computer.
Yeah.
Do you hear? Is it your voice that you're hearing?
I'm hearing my voice.
Okay, if you
Now
put,
it's better.
it's better right now.
Wait.
Can you?
It was for a second, but no,
Okay.
it's not good.
Okay, put your
It's
mouse.
repeating, it's echoing.
Put your mouse over my face and just mute me. I think that should reduce it because I don't have headphones in.
Okay, mute. Wait, I don't see. Okay. So I'll just lower you down.
Yeah, or make it.
But I will need to hear.
Yeah. You can lower it down to a little, or
Okay.
just
Okay.
Does that sound better?
Okay, that's a little bit. It's better now. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Okay. All right. But what I wanted to say was that the anti-imperialism is basically a position that that people from anywhere in the world adopt as to their idea of how global politics and control of certain major populations, geographic, but mostly populations of people. You know, that's like the North American population, or the Arab population, the African population, and the South American population, and so on. Basically, the idea behind anti-imperialism, which is the idea that I as well adhere to, is that every population has the absolute right to rule themselves, to not be under the thumb or the boot or the control or the influence over a certain level of the great imperialist entities. And the imperialist entities, they used to be in the colonial times. You know, you had France and Great Britain, who, of course, you know, did what they want in order to obtain resources and in the power, you know, control over certain parts of the strategic parts of the planet. But after the fall of that, you know, it became the American Empire. You had the American Empire, which controlled the resources and the people, and in many ways, they even not always in a violent way. For example, there has been a lot of imperialism in Italy from the United States, simply because in the post-war period, Italy was overcoming, you know, fascism, and was overcoming a period of not being a democratic nation. So the United States, you know, had kind of influenced Italian politics for a really long time. But I'm getting too far off the topic at this point. The point is, for those who don't know what imperialism is, I will just say that there's a very strong, this anti-imperialism, which basically its point is to support the people, the people's struggles, and that can be an oppressive state, resistance to an oppressive leader, and then it goes all the way up to revolution and the overthrow of an oppressive governing regime. So what basically happened was, when the Syrian situation had out, where the people revolted, you know, they had an uprising, and the uprising then changed and it turned, because of the crackdown against it, it turned into a full-scale revolution. Now, I'm not saying that everyone in the world has to be a revolutionary, you know, or everyone who supports has to be a revolutionary, because, you know, there are some people who are born with a sympathy or an interest in the success of various revolutions, and other people who don't have that kind of they don't look at the struggles of the people around the world as needing all the time. Sometimes a lot less is needed than out now. But in this case, the revolution has begun, and it's up to, in my view, any imperialist to support the revolution. We can't pretend, you know, that it's not happening, and we can't pretend that someone is going to come from the outside and save the Syrian people, because it's not going to happen either. So a lot of anti-imperialists have jumped on the side of the tyrant, of the dictator, and this is something that historically hasn't really happened. You know, you don't find anti-imperialists jumping on the bandwagon of Pol Pot or you know, the worst kind of, you know, human rights violators. Whereas in this case, they have done so, and there are a lot of reasons why they've done so. And part of my struggle is to kind of, you know, convince people to understand, you know, that as imperialists, our duty is to support the struggle of the people. I could go a long on and on about this, but for the moment I would stop on this because it's a huge topic.
Right. Joanne, just feel free to comment.
It's a huge topic, Mary. Yeah, I think she's covered practically everything I was going to say. And yes,
although there's so many things to say about it, though.
Yeah, but I agree wholeheartedly with what you said, and we've just got to try and draw the world's attention just to see what really is happening. I see so many comments. I was looking at a piece, one of the English newspapers yesterday, and the comments after what they'd said. Oh no, children are not being burned by phosphorus bombs, etc. Haven't they seen the footage? Haven't they seen the injured children? There's loads of information and clips and photographs going around, and they're not propaganda. And so it's propaganda to oust a legitimate president. This is so outrageous when you're seeing day after day after day. And look at today, there's been a mass grave found of women and children. And, it's just another one. How many more innocent women and children and citizens of Syria have got to die before somebody realises what's really happening and does something to help? It's heartbreaking.
Right. So what I was gonna say is Brad inside the text chat, Mary and Joanne, Brad inside the text chat, he asked, is the Arab League considered an imperialist entity? Yeah. And why is this considered a revolution and not a civil war? Would you mind just talking about each of those?
Okay, those are really good questions, because in the first place, when we're talking about imperialism, according to the anti-imperialists, there exists only one kind of imperialism, and that is Western imperialism. They don't look at the imperialism that happens in the Russian bloc or any other kind of possible imperialism, and there certainly is no imperialism. In the Arab League, what they are is an organization that groups together the individual Arab states and attempts to have kind of a unified political, economic point of view, but they're certainly not that strong of a political entity in themselves. I mean, they haven't got that much power. They have power to discipline their own members. As a matter of fact, they have just in the past few days invited the transitional, let's just call them transitional at this point, a government in Syria to take the place of the Assad government inside the Arab League. So it's not an entity that can be considered imperialist, but especially not by the anti-imperialists. The anti-imperialists only take into consideration Western imperialism, Western agendas. Any other agenda is completely, they're completely disinterested in it. It doesn't, they can close their eyes, on the Russian sort of dominance and the Russian bloc's even occupation, let's say, of the Mediterranean, because they've got their base in Tartus in Syria, a bit of Russia is right in Syria, it's something that they don't ever talk about. I wonder why, but that's that. I believe that's an adequate answer to that question. And the other one, why is it a revolution and not a civil war? I can begin to respond to that, but then Joan, I think, could probably respond as well. A civil war, it's actually quite complicated, the fact that it didn't start out as a war. It didn't start out as, we want to leave the country, we want to, break away from Syria. It's So its origins are within the population not wanting to redesign any kind of organization of their geography. There was no move to succession. There was no desire to have any geographic changes or major political changes that a civil war generally entails. Like for the United States, the American Civil War. I mean, that was a war because there was the threat of succession from the Union, and there was no such thing in Syria.
One thing about the Arab League as well, they've also told their members that it's quite in order now to go ahead and aid the FSA and the other so-called rebels, freedom fighters, and that is a good thing. At last, somebody from that region has said it's okay to go ahead and give them a hand.
And I see Now I'm looking at the moment of Brad has said, am I understanding this correctly, that the anti-imperialists are basically anti-West? Yes, that's true. You can be an anti-imperialist without being anti-West. I consider myself.
How do you do that?
I'm completely anti-imperialist.
Can you explain that then?
Oh, it's really quite simple. I want the West to prosper, to be successfully, for its citizens to have all of their rights. I want them to take care of their own. I want I want them to be free. I don't want them to control others, though. The West, the West is a concept, more than it is a geographic place. We're West, where I live in Southern Europe, we're West to Russia, but Russia is also kind of West to China. These things are relative, but if we want to consider, the West as a concept, of underneath the United States and the European Union, basically predominating the world of having the last word on everything, on the control of resources, on what kind of political systems, will be acceptable and not. That's one thing. And the West is very, very guilty in many cases of having violated the rights of people all around the world. They've done terrible things, and they're still doing terrible things. So you can be anti-imperialist and still admire the West and want the West to prosper, not at the expense of other people, though, or other lands.
I agree.
This is easy.
Because Mary was so alive.
I was getting ready for, debate.
Say names.
Okay.
No debate.
Well, I'm not as knowledgeable as you, Mary.
So then why don't?
No, I'm sure you are.
I'm
sure you're probably
an
more.
amateur at this.
Are there any other items, Mary or Joanne, that you think people in other areas of the world though need to understand about the imperialist angle to the revolution side of Syria? Have there been things that you think go, and we could transition this into like the media, but do you think that there are things which don't get explained in the media about this concept that you think really need to be people need to understand and be shared with?
Yes, there are lots of things. The media is one of the main contributors in how we perceive what's going on. Thank goodness now we've got my media, your media, the media of every person who owns even a cell phone. So there's access to information, and the media is playing a part that never would have played if there weren't any of these instruments. We wouldn't have known, even if you go back to the Balkan Wars, You know, I mean, I live next door basically, so I knew what was going on, probably more than an American knew what was going on. But still, you know, if you compare, and this is, you know, Yugoslavia is the West. You know, I mean, it's Europe, right? So, you know, the Syrian world is much more mysterious to outsiders. You know, a lot of people don't know anything beyond Damascus. They don't know, you know, any other cities. I didn't know, for example, a lot of things. I mean, I learned so much geography, you know, in the past 2 years. You know, because I didn't know what Homs was. I didn't know anything about Daraa, Idlib, all of these areas that now, you know, are familiar to me. You know, they're becoming familiar because of if you said you wanted to kind of, you know, go from the argument of the anti-imperialism and into the media. This is, I think, one of the major issues is you've got a lot of people, and I've heard this argument so many times. In fact, I heard it in fact, trying to understand who my partner for this debate was. I listened to the conversation with Al. And Al talked about the situation in Saudi Arabia, in Bahrain, in Yemen. He said, why is the media not talking about this? Right?
Right.
I mean, the mainstream media doesn't talk about what's happening. So the thing is, you know, this is absolutely true. They don't talk about it. They don't talk about the struggles in Congo, or in many places around the world where there are people that are dying and suffering and living in conditions of intolerable for any human being to you know, accept, you know. And the thing is, the fact that the media doesn't cover it, it shouldn't surprise anyone, you know. I mean, the media isn't, the Western and the mainstream media doesn't have any interest in putting forth what's going on in Bahrain, in Yemen. It doesn't faze them, you know. But that is no excuse for us to say, well, then, you know, you shouldn't talk about Syria either. They talk too much about Syria, you know. And the situation at the core of this is, you know, you can't have hypocrisy. You know, you can't have well, they're not talking about Bahrain, you know, or they're not talking about what's terrible happening in Qatar and all of these things. You know, it kind of strikes me as being, you know, just looking for an argument, looking for, you know, some way to disaffection people from the media reports that people are on the ground are making.
Right.
So that's my kind of, I mean, I've got a lot more that I could say about it, but, you know, I mean, kind of in a nutshell, you know, I don't think that there's any, you know, and if you look at the pro-Assad journalism, you know, the pro-Assad media, I mean, they talk about what's going on in Israel, in Palestine, in Bahrain. They talk about all these places, but they don't talk about what Assad is doing.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, this, to me, this selective indignation, you know, I find absolutely hypocritical, and I hate hypocrisy more than just about anything.
Right. So what I was going to ask you is Ken inside the chat room, one of our newer members, he asked, I read that Al-Qaeda in Iraq is attacking Syrian regime soldiers. Is Al-Qaeda helping the rebels overthrow Assad? What do you guys know about that item?
Do you want to go for it, John? Or do you want me to?
Are they referring to Jabhat al-Nusra? Because I believe
Probably.
they are, of course they are allied, I believe, to Al-Qaeda. But from what I gather, I'm not sure, but they, some say they are, some say they're not. That's one thing I'm not absolutely certain of. But what I do know is that they're not necessarily working as a joining in with FSA, they do notify each other where they're going to be operating, and they have done a lot of good work. I believe they had some assistance in getting the Indonesian United Nations members safely out. If they'd have been left where they were, they would certainly have been bombed. So I don't know. I'll let you answer, Mary. You probably know more.
I don't. Well, honestly, the thing about Al Qaeda, you read in all of the pro-Assad media. I mean, it's all over there, and it was they were talking about terrorists, from day one, even before there were any terrorists. So I mean, I kind of have a natural inclination to believe that this is some kind of another one of the propaganda lies, that's going on. I do know. I mean, I don't know if they are in Iraq. It says they're in Iraq. I mean, I don't know. I'm not at the moment. Unfortunately, I don't really know what's going on inside Iraq. I do know, however, that Iraq has just sent a lot of soldiers into Syria to fight alongside of the regime forces, and they unfortunately have retaken some of the territory that the Free Syrian Army had liberated. So I do know, that Iraq is playing a part in all of this. They're taking the side of Assad, and this is because of al-Maliki, not because this is what the Iraqi people know or want. Because the Iraqi people have suffered enough, and they're not interested, in prolonging the suffering in that part of the world. So my point of view is, if I see the word Al Qaeda, I mean, instinctively, I just believe it's part of the propaganda war, because there's a gigantic propaganda war going on.
I've got. I'm going to say, Mary, I've got a friend I've known for about 10 years now. He was in the Kurdish Peshmerga army. When the war finished, they were amalgamated into the Iraqi army, and he's now colonel in that. And he's seriously thinking of quitting because he said he's not prepared to go out and murder. And he said the word murder innocent civilians, and he said he's terrified of what's going to happen within that country, and if he can get his family out, he's going. He said many other Iraqis are feeling the same way. They feel the way. Maliki is obviously linked in with Ahmadinejad, the Shia, and he's working hand in glove with him. And of course, there's Muqtada al-Assad. I think he's the one that's heading the Iraqi army that's helping Assad.
Yeah, the Mahdi, probably.
Yeah.
The Mahdi Brigade.
Yeah.
Right. So, what's your response?
Is there a reason? I'm looking at Salam's question. Is there a reason the media doesn't talk about? I don't know exactly what the reasons that are there. I mean, it could be because of particular interests, tied into wealth and the investment and the alliances and all of that. But the point is, it's not in the interests for them to talk about it, so they don't. And then on the other hand, as Abdel points out, that the human rights violations in Bahrain are extremely small in comparison to those of Syria. In the entire Bahraini uprising, I think there have been 90 people killed. Now, this is what happens in an average day inside of Syria, any day of the week, for 2 years now. I mean, there have been days when you've had 675 people slaughtered, So to even put, 90 in an entire 2-year period together with, the 80,000, it's kind of, it just doesn't quite, it doesn't quite make sense. Now, if you want to talk about why the media doesn't talk about what's happening in Palestine, now there's much more this issue could go could broaden a lot, because it's been going on for so long, and in such a, it's become kind of a normal way. I mean, we now normally look at the wall, for example, as normal. It doesn't scandalize us anymore. So in the media, they can't report every day. There's a wall. There's a wall. There's a wall. There's a wall. I think they ought to, but they don't do it. Whereas in Syria, you're reporting, 80 people have been killed, or the town, Scad missiles have dropped down on a university or a village. It's more newsworthy. Just on any kind of non-ideological basis.
Bad news sells newspapers, and they like to exaggerate.
That too. Yeah.
Parts of it.
Although I think if anything, they're not reporting enough on Syria. You can watch television for 6 or 7 hours, from when the first news report begins until when the last one ends, and there's nothing. There's nothing. Although I know everything about Kate's pregnancy and the intestinal problems that the Queen has, and and the conjunctivitis of Berlusconi. I know everything, but I don't. We're not allowed to know what's really going on in Syria, and I don't know exactly why. They basically say the images are too brutal, or there's really no interest in having this situation resolved, much less us being involved in it.
So
I'm going to watch. There's a documentary tomorrow night on BBC Two, and I'm going to watch that. That's the history of this revolution. I'm going to see what slant they put on it. Yes, it should be quite interesting.
So, in regards to like solving the issue, you're saying that they have no desire to actually come to an end.
In regards to what?
In regards to their to the conflict being resolved, you're saying that they want the media wants no part of helping do that, nor inform people about what's actually.
The media doesn't have a task to resolve, to make news. The media, it's only be a participant. You've got citizen journalism. From the first blog, until the latest video, from a person, uploaded onto YouTube. That's someone who's an active participant. But the media itself, it's serving their bosses. Bosses who owns the media's outlet. But the thing is, I think the governments don't really care about bringing things to an end. There's no interest in this. This is why the Syrian people at this point say, all that's left is there's only God. God is only one who can settle things at this point, because no one is going to solve it for us. No one's even going to come and help us. So, I kind of believe, we've got a situation where there's even a big misunderstanding about who's in the majority, who's in the minority. There's so much misunderstanding. There's so much that's it's hard enough for a person who follows it every day to keep up. Much less someone who hasn't been following this for a long time. So I do believe, though, that the outside world doesn't have any true interest in seeing a resolution. And I would like to add one thing, if I may. I think that we as supporters have had we've got kind of our own kind of struggle to deal with. We've wanted, and we want very much to support the success of the revolution. But then there's the question, what comes after that? What next? So the thing is, there's so much debate about what's next, as if we know, but we don't know. We don't know what's next. So there's, you've got, you make a hypothesis. What is the best thing that could happen, and what is the thing we absolutely don't want to see happen, and all of the issue that we as activists, as interested parties or person involved, first of all, is we have to solidarize. Is that a word in English? feel
so.
Solidarity,
right?
And we have to. I can say it better in Italian, I think.
Okay.
We have to feel solidarity, and then as soon as we feel this kind of solidarity with the situation, we see who is the oppressor and who is the oppressed, and we're in solidarity with the oppressed. I mean, I can't imagine being in solidarity with an oppressor. It just, to me, it just it makes no sense. So if we're in solidarity, we want the best outcome. So the best outcome. Sometimes the media or the activists will even say you've got to support the SNC or the Transitional Council, or there's all kinds of these like bodies, that are like governing bodies, kind of transitional governing bodies set up in place. And the thing is, I think they do. I mean, I don't want to criticize them because they're doing things, with obviously the best interests of their people in mind. But I do want to say that I believe as activists, it's our duty also to point out when we disagree with them, when we think that they're probably putting the positions before the issues. Because if you're forming a new governing body, it might even be a new government of the same, it doesn't have to be the outcome of a revolution. I mean, after a vote, you form a new government, right? So the thing is, in order to form anything that's supposed to have as its task to govern the people, because Assad is just governing a war. He's not governing Syria. He's managing a war against his own people. Acting as a colonialist, bombing the living daylights out of them. But the thing is, we've got to see that there's going to be, there is going to be a post-Assad. There's going to be. It's inevitable. And the thing is, the people who are now preparing the way for that, they get there, with saying, we want, it's got to be this person in power, or this ethnic group in power, or so on and so forth. And the point is, you're going to scare people off who at this point do support Assad, because they're going to say you're going to, it's going to be all for you and nothing for us. So first of all, we have to realize that there are pro-Assad people. It's natural. Otherwise, they have the reasons for being pro-Assad, but they do exist, and they're going to continue to exist, and coexist after the revolution ends. So you have to struggle to find national unity, between not only the ethnic groups but the political groups, but even the opposition can't fight against themselves, but then you can't have a continuation of the war post-war. You have to have a process where you don't have a rule you don't have majority rule saying we're in power and the rest of you, because the minorities aren't going to feel adequately protected. You need to construct a majority that with the representative of the people, and once they agree on the principles and the values, they can get together and say, this is what we want to propose. We want to propose this kind of Syria. We want to propose a Syria, where Syrians, are proud of being Syrians. And we have to manage the return of the refugees, which is going to be an enormous problem. The rebuilding of Syria. What's happened to Syria? It's beyond the world wars. This kind of damage. So we're going to have to they're going to have to take into account the rebuilding, the resettlement, and then the rebuilding of a society, the rebuilding of a Syrian character that they don't have a flag that has the photograph of the president. I mean, it's this kind of cult of personality. I find it pathological, and it has to be overcome. You have to get over this period, and it's going to be work to get to that, because there are a lot of people that their identity has been it's not pro Syria but pro Assad, and in fact the chants that the Assad forces say is God, Syria, Bashar, and that's all. That's actually their chant. The name of the president. I mean, how can you have your dignity so little that your president is more important than your own people? It just, to me, it defies it defies any kind of understanding.
I think there are some signs of solidarity.
Joanne, are you there?
Because as you said, it's going to be one massive problem when this war's over and have to start the rebuilding. What's going to happen to all the displaced Syrians while they're waiting? Because it's going to take a long time just to clear the rubble from the cities before they start building.
Of course.
It's just I've never seen a humanitarian disaster on this scale before. And then there's the health of things. I mean, what are the children going to be like? They're all going to need psychiatric help.
Right. Okay. So, what I was gonna say is
And he said children were wetting themselves with terror. Yes, Max.
Well, no. So I was just gonna say that I think Al was trying to connect inside this room right now. But if so, as we're still waiting, and if you guys want to continue speaking, it's not a big deal, and we'd love to continue it. What I was going to say is, yesterday, Mary, Joanne spoke about the refugee crisis. What's your take on that front? In regards to that item.
Well, first of all, it's a dramatic tragedy. There's really very little to add to it, than other than the fact of the people that are coming out, are traumatized, and they're leaving, with one small bag if they're lucky. A lot of the time they don't even have that. There's been a photographic exhibit, going to people in some of the camps saying, show us the one most important thing you brought with you, and these people, a little girl, a pair of blue jeans, I mean, we have, we all probably own about like 5-6 pairs of blue jeans, and these are people that all they have left is something like that, or a photograph, So we take it, we don't, I mean, not ever having been a refugee, all I can say is, it's a mammoth proportion of human suffering. It has to be resolved, as quickly as possible. The needs that they have in there are dramatic, and I mean, we've got a lot of people from the Europe and other countries, Turkey, going into the camps near Turkey, but the camps in Jordan are in worse conditions, and there's less access to assist them.
I got some good news and some pictures yesterday of, I'm associated with Hand in Hand for Syria, and it showed the that had actually been delivered into Deir ez-Zor. Also, the ambulances that have been sent out, they've also
sure,
arrived.
hand in hand is great.
It's a magnificent organisation.
Yeah.
Well done to all of
Godsend.
them and the people supporting them.
Now I see a comment here, which by Abdel, saying the revolution is leaderless. You know, and if I could for 1 second address this,
Yeah,
could I?
go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, I've heard a lot of criticism for a very long time that the revolution is leaderless, as if this is a really bad thing. You know, they say, you know, well, there's no, you know, Che, there's no Chavez, there's no, you know, you don't have a leader. And this, I think, you know, it's almost laughable, because we, I mean, I don't want to say I'm a revolutionary, you know, because I'm basically an anarchist, you know, but I support, you know, the people's causes. And the thing is, you know, we've always, for years and years, said you've got to get the grassroots to move. You've got to get, you know, we don't need leaders. All of us are leaders. You know, if I want to demand my dignity, my rights, my freedom, I don't need a permission from a leader, and I don't need a leader to tell me this is the way to do it. I should feel that the way I do it is adequate enough. So, I mean, you even have, if you want to go to, you know, the anonymous, you know, and Occupy movement and all this, I mean, the point is, you know, we don't even have a face on us anymore. We wear the Guy Fawkes mask. So the thing is, for anyone to kind of condemn, you know, the revolution as being leaderless is kind of a misreading of anything that we've, you know, as revolutionary sympathizers have tried to push for a long time. You know, that you don't need all these leaders. You know, the revolution from below, you know, the people rise up. And the one thing I found is you've got a lot of people, especially in the pro-Palestine movement, who don't understand that it's kind of hard to say this, because I don't want to put down people who are supporting, you know, the Palestinian cause, because I'm one of them, you know. But I think, you know, a lot of times, you know, we've had this situation where they've waited to see what the leaders will say, and then it's okay, you know. And a leader, you know, a leader makes more. What's the word for it? It validates, you know, whatever it is that the issue that's being dealt with at the time. And a lot of these like Palestine activist people, you know, they don't recognize, you know, the Intifada when it's happening in Syria, you know, because for some reason, you know, it doesn't have a leader, but the Intifada in Palestine didn't have a leader either. So, you know, I just would like, you know, the kind of the hypocrisy that you see a lot of times, you know, in the people in this solidarity movement to just kind of, you know, to stop.
Right. So just a quick note, you know, to both of you. Al is having trouble hooking up his camera to the other computer that he's trying to use. I know that there's some people inside the room that are, you know, engaging in a text discussion and, you know, posing different questions and items for each of you to speak on. So if you'd like to continue the discussion, answer any of their questions, and perhaps one of them will join in, that's more than fine. I just have to go and start a new room on gun control with a new speaker. So unfortunately, I have to leave you ladies. Is that okay with both of you?
That's fine. That's fine.
All right. Thank you.
Speak to you again soon.
Yes, we'll do.
Hope they don't shoot you.
All right. All right. Have a good day, and feel free to respond. Okay. Have a good day.
Thanks. Thanks a lot for everything.
You got it, of course.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Max.
As always. As always.